Dear friends, I welcome you to my channel, and in this video I will tell you how you can create a game, and not just a game, but a sufficiently complex, sophisticated, perhaps even grandiose project. Well, let's start with the fact that to create a complex game, you need to prepare assets. You need to write a design document. You need to prepare a multitude of images for your graphics. Here on the screen I'm showing you what I have prepared for my game. Next, it would be advisable for you to install the Antigravity program from Google. The advantage of this program is that inside you can use AIs for free or acquire the Pro plan for a symbolic cost, which will be more than enough for you at the start. Be sure to ask the AI to help you outline the rules, to write them out to make it easier for you, because the neural network navigates technical terms better. Well, if you aren't a programmer, it will help you write out every rule for your game in detail. You are only required to explain what exactly you want in general terms. The next thing you need to do is to set up GitHub and connect it to your anti-gravity project. And every time you make a version of the project that is stable enough, simply ask your AI in anti-gravity, for example, Gemini 3, to upload your current version to a GitHub branch that you specifically designate for current, not yet fully fledged, incomplete versions. Preferably make several branches. For example, the main branch is the branch intended for the finished project. The develop branch is for the stable version of your latest build. And add some other branch like test. It's a branch for testing systems you haven't verified yet. When you have prepared GitHub and you have the rules for your project, I recommend creating a project plan. Of course, a project plan for a large game takes more than one day. For me, it took about a year of time to work out the plan, the technical specs, the design document, write out all the formulas, and perform calculations. But then my game is quite advanced and complex. So if you are making an advanced and complex game, this will take your time. But then later it pays off greatly with rapid development in the future. Because when in the technical specs you thoroughly think through how every button will work in your game, how every feature will work in detail, then you simply need to give your written text to the AI, feed it to the AI for processing, and AI will write out the game creation phases for you. You cannot create a game simply by saying, hey, make me a game. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately, at the moment. You will need to create the game in small parts, following the plan you created in advance, possibly a plan you created jointly with the AI. My advice regarding the creation of the general game plan: use the Opus 4.5 AI from Anthropic for this. At the moment, Claude Opus 4.5 is the most advanced AI for programming and analysis. The free plan only gives a few calls per week using this AI, a few opportunities. The advanced plan, the Pro plan, gives slightly more calls. But I have to say, the Pro plan is quite sufficient for a relaxed pace. In your plan, it is desirable to display absolutely all the systems that will be in your game, so that AI writes them out for you right away. And I recommend assigning the AI to make all systems in the game. but in the form of placeholders, so-called stubs, so that it doesn't waste lots of energy, resources, and time on the detailed writing of all mechanics in these systems at once. It just won't work that way. You will handle that later when you go through each of these systems and fill them in. At the first stage, it just needs to create placeholders, and so that your system knows that you have specific systems in the game for the future, so it doesn't imagine these systems later. So that the AI understands what is in game in general. When you have the plan generated, you give it to the AI to run. Based on this plan, the AI will create the architecture of your game. I want to remind that the architecture rules of your game need to be written out in advance in the rule section of your anti-gravity project. It's called the Gemini.md file where the rules are kept. I also recommend writing down rules specifically for your project. Aside from the general rules for all of anti-gravity projects, there are individual rules for the specific so-called workspace. This will be your specific project. I'm making my game in Unity, so I simply open the Unity folder where the project is located in Antigravity, and going forward, the AI will work specifically with this project, reading all the code that is there, analyzing it, looking at it, and working with it in the future. When you proceed to the implementation and creation of a specific system according to your plan, Claude Opus isn't mandatory here. You can choose the cheap Gemini 3 Flash or Gemini 3 Pro. Even on the free tier version, it gives a lot of limits per week, meaning you can boldly communicate with it, discuss the plan, and ask to make changes to the plan. By the way, you don't need to type the text with Gemini. You can use your microphone for that. So, when the plan for each system is ready, let's say we take one system like the movement system. So, when the plan for the movement system is ready, you switch back to Opus and give it the command execute the plan, start programming. Opus will start writing code for you very qualitatively, according to your plan, the one you developed jointly with the AI. Well, in this case, I'm implementing a dialogue system into my game. Consequently, I write out what I need in this system. I created a plan for the implementation of this system in advance. Having indicated all corrections, I command Opus to start implementing this plan, and Opus ultimately begins programming. Opus does programming very well. The neural network effectively came out in late to 2025, and it essentially caused a quiet revolution in programming. It is absolutely possible now, without the help of professional programmers, for a person who is far from programming. For example, I am not a professional programmer. It's quite realistic to create a game if you understand at least a little bit how Unity is structured and how architecture is structured. You don't strictly have to be an experienced programmer. Basic understanding combined with AI is quite enough. In my game, there are over 30 different systems. Consequently, the creation of my game is a sufficiently lengthy process, but the AI immensely speeds up this work, tens, maybe hundreds of times, meaning what would have taken a programmer a year, at least a year, with the help of AI, I do in a few weeks. It is quite realistic to bring a game to MVP, which is a minimal viable product, Even an advanced complex game like the one I'm making, it's a global RPG that is inspired by the first Fallout games and a game like Battle Brothers, classic RPGs. Even such a complex game is quite realistic to bring to the MVP stage in a month of daily labor, of course. While the AI creates code on your screen, I'll tell you a little bit about what inspired me to create such a game. I played Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 in the late 90s, and these games made a very deep impression on me with their atmosphere, plot thoughtfulness, their depth and detail. And I understand that recreating such games on my own is very hard, but one can try to get as close as possible to that atmosphere and that immersion into that world which these games once showed to humanity. Therefore, if you are also a fan of games in a post-apocalypse settings, like Fallout, Atom RPG, Wasteland, Under Rail, Encased, and also if you generally love CRPGs, computer RPGs, like Battle Brothers and similar adventure games, where there are few pre-written scripted things, but lots of random events, possibilities, lots of dynamic development, where there is a living world that lives on its own, regardless of the player, then I'm sure you will like my game very much. Therefore, I would be very glad if you subscribe to the channel and follow the updates of my game. I will try to show here what new things have been done. Well, let's return to the story of how AI writes code. The AI often make compilation errors. Therefore, when your code gives errors, specifically red ones, just copy these errors and without explanation throw them to AI. It knows what to do with them itself. And within the framework of your architecture, within the framework of your rules, it will correct them. And also, one more advice every time you complete a stage of your game, finish some system, switch to Claude Opus 4.5 and ask Opus to fully analyze this part that you made, the system, well, for example, the dialogue system, for compliance with your game's architecture. My architecture is made for a client server part, meaning logic in my game will be on the client and verification will be on the server so that players cannot cheat. Consequently, the AI always checks for me after every system how much this system corresponds to the architecture which I wrote out the rules for in advance. And this greatly facilitates further project creation because architecture is the foundation. If you make a mistake in the foundation, in the architecture, then later your whole project will be sort of crooked. Try not to let this happen. Consult with the AI more often. I had a case where I initially made an error in architecture, although not a very big one, but the AI had to rewrite approximately half of the code. Fortunately, Opus 4.5 handled this superbly. It rewrote the code for network architecture and didn't break anything. This is amazing what LLMs have achieved in the last year. I'll say a couple words about Gemini 3. It is the native AI for antigravity. It is inferior to Opus in capabilities, but it has a big bonus. It can see your screen, it sees screenshots. Therefore, when I'm working with the interface in the game, I simply take screenshots in Unity. Gemini understands perfectly well what is happening on the screenshots, and this significantly facilitates development Well, then, here I go into Unity to check what the AI did. Well, we have some red errors. The game won't compile with them. Consequently, the red arrows simply need to be thrown in the chat with AI. I usually choose for a simpler AI like Gemini. Throw in the text of these errors and run it. The AI looks and fixes. There are, of course, situations when the neural network is desperately stupid, and sometimes you need to give it additional instructions on what is wrong. Rarely, but there are situations when the neural network cannot figure out the cause of the problem. Then, very often, these causes are not in the code. They might be in Unity, in the UI, in the interface. Since the AI cannot see clearly what happens there in the interface, well, at least without connecting MCP, then here you will have to try to look yourself to speed up the whole process where the problem might be, and consequently inform the AI about it. Then it understands what the matter is and efficiently fixes it all. There are, of course, ways to make it so the AI knows exactly what is happening in your project. There is a plugin called Coplay, for example. You can connect it. Well, it's paid basically, although it is effective in the sense that with its help, the AI sees everything happening in your project and can check itself what is wrong there. So after some number of attempts at fixing errors that periodically popped up, finally the system of dialogues is ready. And here it created a custom editor for me so that I could create dialogue notes in it. In these notes, you can write out what you want your NPC and your main hero to say in the game. That is the NPC phrase, the main hero's choice, the phrase for the main hero's choice. This is a sufficiently flexible system. What you see on the screen was the first version. In the future, naturally, I had to refine it based on what it created now. And in the end, a sufficiently powerful dialogue system. Also, you have to add action and condition system to the dialogue system. Condition and action system means if such and such condition is met, then there will be such and such action. Well, you can take a look at the screen, what turned out with the dialogues in the end. That is how the phrases work. Dialogues work over the global map, the system works, and here I show how slightly more advanced versions of the dialogue editor look in the end. Now you can see how dialogue branches are built. Well, friends, if you found the video interesting, please subscribe, please like this video. Also subscribe to my Telegram channel in the video description. All the latest news are posted there first. I promise that I will release new videos regularly in the future. Well, I will show the progress of the game, how new features are added. Possibly I will make new guides on working with AIs. I'm sure it will be very interesting for you. And don't be afraid to try launching your own projects. Of course, developing your own game takes time. It's not a day, not two, not a week. Developing an advanced game takes years. But now you don't have to necessarily hire an expensive software developer programmer to turn your ideas into reality. You can do this with the help of AI very quickly, in short time frames, with a minimal budget, which every person can allocate for creation. Well, friends, have a good day, everyone, and until we meet again.